Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who downloaded Tinder. For most of my 20s, dating had been something that just passed me by. My friends always seemed to have stories about wild hookups, long-term relationships, or even messy breakups, while I usually spent my weekends either gaming, working overtime, or meeting the same two friends at a sports bar. It wasn't that I hadn't tried. I had a couple of relationships in college, but nothing serious, nothing that ever lasted. By the time I hit 28, I was starting to feel like maybe I'd just been left behind. It didn't help that I didn't consider myself all that attractive. Average build, thinning hair, acne scars on my cheeks. I wasn't hideous, but I wasn't the kind of guy women stopped to glance at either. My coworkers used to tease me, saying I looked more like an IT help desk guy than someone women would swipe right on. So in the summer of 2018, sitting alone in my small apartment in Akron, Ohio, I finally caved and downloaded Tinder. I remember thinking, what's the worst that could happen? The first couple of weeks were exactly what I expected. A few awkward chats with women who either unmatched quickly or just stopped responding mid-conversation. Most of the women I actually found attractive didn't even swipe right on me at all. I wasn't surprised. I had read enough online forums to know that dating apps were brutal for average-looking guys. But then came her. Her name was Lena. She had long blonde hair, blue eyes, and this smile that looked both mischievous and inviting. Honestly, she was out of my league. I almost didn't believe it when I saw the notification. Lena has sent you a message. At first, I assumed it was a scam or a bot. Her first message was simple. Lena, hey, I like your smile. I actually laughed out loud when I read it, because no woman had ever complimented my smile before. My instinct was to ignore it, to assume it was fake. But 3 days later, she messaged me again. Lena, so are you going to leave me hanging, or do you not like blondes? I stared at the screen for a long time. She seemed real. Her profile had several pictures, not just clam shots, but casual ones too. Her with a dog, her at a lake, even one with her brother. At least that's what she wrote in the caption. Against my better judgment, I finally messaged back. Me. Sorry, thought you might be a bot. Didn't want to waste your time. Her reply came almost instantly. Lena. Lol, fair. I promise I'm real, see? We started talking, and to my surprise, it felt natural. She was funny, playful, but also genuinely interested in me. Within a week, we were texting every day. Within 2, we were having nightly video calls. Seeing her face, hearing her laugh, it was undeniable. She was real. For the first time in years, I felt wanted. After about a month, Lena suggested I come visit her. She lived in a small town outside Mansfield, Ohio, about an 8-hour drive from me. My first reaction was hesitation. Meeting someone from Tinder in real life felt risky, especially someone that far away. But she kept reassuring me. Lena, on video call. Look, if you're nervous, we can meet in a cafe or something. I just think we should finally hang out in person, don't you? I caved. I requested 2 days off from work, told my brother where I was going, just in case, and packed a bag. The morning I left, I was jittery but excited. That excitement didn't last long. The drive was long and tedious, but what started to bother me was Lena's texting. She was obsessive. Every half hour she asked where I was, how much longer, why I wasn't replying faster. At one point, she sent 10 messages in a row because I hadn't responded for 40 minutes while driving through a dead zone. Me, finally texting back, hey, relax, I'm on the road. Don't want to crash, LOL. Lena, sorry, just excited. Can't wait to see you. I brushed it off as nerves, but the closer I got, the weirder it became. The direction she gave me led me off the highway, down long gravel roads lined with thick trees. Every road looked the same. No streetlights, no signs, just endless forest. My GPS even stopped updating. When I finally pulled up, it was 2 p.m., and the house in front of me wasn't what I expected at all. It was old, weather-beaten. The upstairs windows was boarded up, and the paint on the siding peeled like sunburned skin. The only sign of life was a small red Volkswagen Bug parked by the garage, the same one she had mentioned in texts. I texted her. Here. Her reply. Just a single smiley face, weird. Still, I got out and walked up the path. As I raised my hand to knock, I froze. In the second-floor window, an old man was staring at me. He was pale, gaunt, his face almost skeletal. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. My stomach dropped. But then I remembered Lena mentioning her dad once. Maybe it was him? I knocked. After a moment, the door opened. Lena, she was even prettier in person. She smiled, hugged me, invited me in. The tension eased for a moment until I asked casually, me. So, didn't know your dad was here today? Lena. My dad? Me. Yeah, he was looking at me from the upstairs window when I pulled up. Her face drained of color. Lena, whispering. My dad's in Florida right now. He won't be back for weeks. I swear my blood went cold. She grabbed my arm. Lena, we need to leave now. We hurried outside, putting distance between us and the house. I kept asking her what was going on, but she just shook her head, pale and trembling. I called the police. When they arrived half an hour later, they searched the house. Nothing. No old man, no sign of forced entry, just the back door wide open. They told us to lock everything and call again if anything else happened. That night, Lena begged me not to leave. We locked the doors, grabbed her dad's shotgun from a cabinet, and settled in the living room. She eventually fell asleep, but I stayed awake, the shotgun across my lap, the TV playing low in the background. Around 2 a.m., I heard it, the slow, deliberate rattle of a doorknob upstairs. I crept up with the shotgun, heart pounding. In the dim kitchen light, through the glass back door, I saw him, the old man. His hollow eyes locked on mine. He looked startled for a second, then turned and bolted into the woods. I ran back downstairs, shaking Lena awake, telling her what happened. We called the cops again. Another search, another nothing. This time they told us to stay somewhere else for the night. Lena went to a friend's. I told her I'd follow later, but I sat in my car for a while, calling my brother, trying to calm down. That's when I saw him again, standing in the yard, watching me, his frame silhouetted in the glow of the porch light. I floored it. Lena and I went on a couple more dates after that, but I could never shake the memory of that night. She never returned to that house alone, and eventually we just stopped talking. To this day, I don't know who that old man was, how he got inside, or why the police never found him. But I know this. Every time I think about downloading Tinder, again I picture that window, that face, and I close the app. I never thought I would ever be the kind of person to use Tinder. For most of my 20s, I believed dating apps were for people who were either desperate or just looking for hookups. I told myself I wanted something real, something you found in bookstores, at coffee shops, or through a friend of a friend. That was how my parents met, and I wanted to believe that sort of organic connection was still possible. But when my last relationship collapsed, after 3 years of shared apartments, shared bills, and shared plans for the future, I found myself staring at my bedroom ceiling night after night, feeling like there was a gaping hole in my chest. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was the silence. The kind of silence that made even the hum of the refrigerator sound like a scream. I'd stopped going out with friends. I'd started ignoring my coworkers' invitations for drinks after work. My world had shrunk to the size of my apartment. And one night in that silence, my best friend Tara called me. "You can't live like this, Rachel," she said, her voice firm in that way only she could manage. "You need to try again. Not for him, for you." "I'm not ready," I murmured, my throat thick. "You don't have to be ready for a relationship. Just talk to people, have some fun, flirt with a stranger. Remind yourself that life is still happening out there." I didn't argue. I just listened. And that same night, I downloaded Tinder. The first week was rough. Every time I opened the app, I felt like I was scrolling through a catalog of mannequins. Guys holding up fish, shirtless mirror selfies, awkward grins. Swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. Occasionally someone would message me, but they were either pushy, shallow, or just boring. I almost deleted the app until one night when I was sprawled across my couch in sweatpants, a profile made me pause. His name was Daniel. The profile picture wasn't flashy, just a close-up of his face. Strong jawline, short brown hair, but what stood out were his eyes. Ice blue, sharp, like they were looking right through me. His bio was short, almost cryptic. Truth is not always what you see with your eyes. I frowned at that. Was it pretentious? Maybe. But it was different. And something about those eyes made me swipe right. It was a match. Within minutes, he messaged me. Daniel. Couldn't help but notice your smile. It's the kind people write poems about. Me. That's unexpectedly poetic for Tinder. Daniel. Maybe I'm not the typical Tinder guy. The conversation flowed easier than I expected. He asked thoughtful questions. What books I liked, what music I listened to, what made me laugh. Most guys asked where I lived or if I was up. Daniel felt different, almost old-fashioned. Over the next week, we talked every day. I learned he was 29, worked in design, and had grown up in the same city. He loved art, especially darker literature. He quoted Poe to me one night over text. We loved with a love that was more than love. I should have rolled my eyes, but instead I smiled like a teenager. Eventually, he asked me out. Coffee? Something simple. No pressure. I agreed. We met on a chilly Friday evening at a small cafe a few blocks from my apartment in Baltimore. When I first saw him in person, my stomach flipped. He was taller than I expected, broad-shouldered, dressed neatly in a black button-down. But it was the eyes that got me again. Those same piercing blues, more intense in person. Rachel? He asked, smiling. Yeah. Hi. The first few minutes were awkward, but then, like online, conversation flowed. We talked about books. He adored Poe, of course, and I confessed my guilty pleasure for mystery novels. He teased me, but in a light, charming way. 2 hours passed without me noticing. When the cafe began closing, he walked me outside. I had a good time, he said, his voice low. Me too. He hesitated then. How about dinner at my place next week? I cook. Better than takeout, I promise. I should have hesitated more. But after weeks of silence in my life, this attention felt intoxicating, so I agreed. The following Thursday, I found myself standing outside his apartment building. It was older, brick, tucked between newer glass structures. He buzzed me in, and I climbed the stairs, heart hammering. Daniel greeted me warmly, pulling me into a dimly lit apartment that smelled faintly of spices and something smoky. The table was already set, candles flickering. You weren't kidding about cooking, I said, smiling nervously. Family recipes, he said, his grin boyish. Dinner was good, at least at first. He made lamb, tender, flavorful, though a little heavy. We ate while talking about art, literature, and the city. He recited lines of poetry with a chilling intensity, his eyes glinting in the candlelight. It should have felt romantic. Instead, I felt something shift. There was hunger in his gaze, not desire, something darker. After dinner, he gestured toward the balcony. You'll love the view. Fresh air. The balcony was small, cluttered with a grill and a metal bucket in the corner. The city lights stretched below like scattered stars. But the air was thick with a strange odor, meaty, metallic. Something smells weird, I said, wrinkling my nose. Daniel laughed, the sound hollow. Just a little lamb burger. Family. Recipe. He lifted the grill lid. The patty inside sizzled, edges blackened. But my stomach lurched when I saw it. A long blonde hair tangled around the meat. That doesn't look good, I muttered, stepping back. His smile vanished. His eyes hardened. "I promise you'll love it. Just try, Rachel." My blood ran cold. I don't feel well. I should go." "No, you don't," he growled, grabbing my wrist. His grip was iron. "What are you doing?" I yelped, tugging. "Against him, don't you see?" His face twisted, desperate and furious. "We're meant to be together forever. You're not leaving." The smell grew stronger. I gagged. Desperate, I shoved him, stumbling into the corner. My foot hit the bucket. It tipped, clanging loudly, revealing what was inside. Bones. A skull, bleached white. I screamed. Daniel lunged. "Don't ruin this, Rachel." Adrenaline surged through me. My hand darted for the spatula resting on the grill. Without thinking, I swung. The metal cracked against his head with a sickening thud. He collapsed, gasping, blood trickling, shaking. I dropped the spatula and bolted. Down the stairs, through the lobby into the night. My fingers fumbled as I called 911, sobbing into the phone. The police stormed the apartment. They found Daniel unconscious, but alive. What they discovered inside turned my stomach. A locked room filled with remains. Young women, all lured through dating apps, all promised romance. News reports exploded the next day. Tinder predator captured. I was the only one who survived. The only one who had gotten away before becoming another meal, another trophy. But survival didn't feel like victory. Even now, when I close my eyes, I see his face in that flickering candlelight, hear his laugh, smell that meaty stench clinging to the night air, and sometimes in my nightmares I hear his voice again, whispering the words he'd said on that balcony. "We're meant to be together forever." I wasn't exactly proud of the way I used Tinder back in 2016. At 29, I had just gone through a messy breakup. 4 years with someone who decided she wanted something more stable than me. A guy who worked long shifts at a tech company, ate takeout 3 nights a week, and lived in a 1-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Cincinnati. Truth was, I wasn't looking for stability back then. I wanted distraction, excitement, and if I was being brutally honest, validation. Most nights after work, I'd scroll through profiles in bed until my eyes hurt. Sometimes I matched, sometimes I didn't. Usually it was just dead-end conversations that fizzled out after a few lines. But then there was her, Clara. Her profile caught me off guard. No exaggerated filters, no blurry bathroom selfies, just 3 clear photos. In one, she was sitting on a porch swing in a sundress, sunlight in her dark hair. Another showed her leaning against a jukebox laughing. The last was a close-up of her face, sharp cheekbones, piercing green eyes, and the kind of smirk that made you wonder what secret she was keeping. Her bio was short. 36, divorced, collector of stories, fan of loud guitars and quiet nights, don't waste my time. I swiped right instantly. When we matched, I felt the small surge of dopamine hit. Our first messages were playful, almost too easy. Me. "Collector of stories, huh? That sounds dangerous." Clara. "Only if you become one of them." Me. "Guess I'm willing to take that risk." Clara. "Good. Most men bore me after 5 minutes. You've got until Friday to prove you're different." She suggested a bar she liked. The Rusted Lantern, a small dive tucked into an older part of town. I remember the weather that night. It was raining, one of those steady Midwestern drizzles that made the roads shine like mirrors. I nearly texted her to cancel, but something about the way Clara carried herself through text, confident, unshaken, pulled me in. When I stepped inside the bar, the place smelled of wood polish, fried food, and stale beer. Neon beer signs glowed faintly against the walls. The booths were carved up with initials of people who had come and gone decades before. And then I saw her. She was sitting in the corner booth, half shadowed under the low amber light. She wore a black leather jacket over a simple top, her hair loose, eyes scanning the jukebox. When she looked up, she smiled like she already knew me. "Ethan," she said, standing and leaning in for a kiss on the cheek. Her voice had a husky edge, like she'd been laughing too hard the night before. "Clara," I said. "Wow, you look..." She smirked. "Better than my photos, or worse?" Better, I admitted. She laughed, waved me into the booth, and signaled the bartender. The conversation flowed easier than I expected. We talked about everything: our favorite albums, the movies we grew up on, even the weird habits of our parents. At one point, she told me she'd seen the Rolling Stones live in '99. No way, I said, leaning forward. I was, 13? My uncle had tickets but wouldn't take me. Her eyes lit up. Then you missed history. That night was chaos. People screaming, crying, couples breaking up in the crowd. Beautiful chaos. I couldn't stop smiling. For once, I wasn't overthinking or checking my phone. I was present. By the third drink, she leaned closer, her hand brushing mine on the table. I should warn you, she said softly. I don't do the whole boyfriend-girlfriend routine. I like moments, nights, memories, not promises. That sounds perfect to me, I said without hesitation. She tilted her head, studying me. Good. You don't seem like the type to bore me. When the bar started thinning out, she suggested we leave. Her car was parked close, an old black sedan that smelled faintly of vanilla and cigarettes. She drove with one hand on the wheel, the other tapping against her thigh in rhythm with the classic rock station playing quietly. Her place was in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. The house itself looked older than the rest on the block, a small Victorian-style bungalow with pale green paint that peeled slightly around the edges. As soon as we stepped inside, I felt something I couldn't name. The living room was beautiful, yes, but strange. Dark wood paneling, heavy curtains, a fireplace lined with old photographs in black and white frames. The only thing that didn't fit was the rug, cream-colored, thick, textured. You live here alone? I asked, glancing around. She poured whiskey into 2 glasses before answering. Alone now. The house was part of the divorce settlement. I hesitated. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. She shrugged. Don't be. He left. I stayed. That's all that matters. We sat on the couch sipping whiskey. Her hand brushed mine again, but this time it lingered. Her confidence was intoxicating, her honesty disarming. You have this look, she said suddenly, tilting her head. Like you're trying to decide whether you're lucky or stupid for being here. I chuckled nervously. Maybe both. Good. Answer, she whispered, leaning closer. Our lips met, and soon everything blurred. Her touch, her warmth, the soft scratch of her jacket against my shirt. My heart raced, but then in the middle of it, a wave of nausea hit me. I pulled back, dizzy, my stomach twisting. Before I could stop it, I doubled over and vomited, right onto the pale rug. The room went dead silent. Clara froze, staring down at the mess. For a moment, her face was blank, unreadable. Then slowly her expression shifted, anger flooding in, twisting her features. You idiot, she snapped, jumping up. Do you have any idea what you just did? I'm sorry, I stammered, wiping my mouth. I didn't mean to. The one thing in this house that isn't a reminder of him, she hissed, grabbing a towel. And you ruined it. Her voice cracked on the last word. I tried to help, reaching for the towel, but she shoved me back. Just leave, she said, her voice trembling with fury. I mumbled another apology, grabbed my jacket, and stumbled out, the door into the cool night air. My head was spinning, my stomach still in knots. I didn't look back. 9 years later. Life moved on. I got promoted. I dated other women. Clara became just another strange story I'd tell friends when they asked about my worst dates. Then, 9 years later, I saw her face again. It was on the local news, her mugshot, pale and hardened. The anchor's voice was calm, almost detached. A woman has been arrested after police uncovered a hidden basement in her home, containing evidence of multiple kidnappings and torture. The suspect, 45-year-old Clara Bennett, is accused of luring young men through dating apps, and I froze. They showed images of the house, her house. They showed photos of evidence bags being carried out, chains, tools, journals. The reporter went on. One victim escaped and alerted authorities. Forensic investigators have linked Clara to several missing persons cases over the last 2 decades. In perhaps the most disturbing detail, police say the cream-colored carpet in her living room was made from human skin. My stomach dropped. I saw the rug in my mind, the rug I had vomited on, the one that didn't match anything else in her home. And for the first time in years, I realized how close I had come. If not for the whiskey, the nausea, the accident, I might never have walked out of that house alive. I sat in silence for a long time, the news report looping in the background. My hands shook, my chest tightened. Lucky or stupid, I had once told her. I finally had my answer. I never imagined that loneliness could creep into your life so quietly. It wasn't sudden like a storm breaking through a window. It was subtle, quiet, seeping into my days until I realized one morning that I hadn't laughed, genuinely laughed, in months. I was 29, living in Philadelphia, working as a graphic designer from my apartment. People often assumed remote work meant freedom, lounging in pajamas, flexible hours, skipping commutes. And while those things were true, no one talked about how isolating it could be. Days blurred together. Most of my friends had either moved out of the city or were buried in marriages, babies, or careers. I'd look at their posts on Instagram, baby showers, vacations, home renovations, and scroll past with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. For me, weekends had become a ritual. Wine, Netflix, maybe an occasional dinner out alone. I told myself I didn't mind. That solitude meant independence. But truthfully, there was a hollow place inside me. And one Friday night, after a couple glasses of Cabernet and a movie I barely paid attention to, I downloaded Tinder again. I'd deleted it a year earlier after a string of awkward, disappointing dates, but loneliness has a way of lowering your guard. My thumb hovered over the icon once it downloaded, a mix of shame and anticipation coiling in my stomach. And then, I swiped. After 20 or 30 bland profiles, one stopped me cold. Evan, 28. His pictures looked natural, not like the carefully curated ones most guys posted. There he was laughing on a hiking trail, hair messy and sun catching on his skin. Another of him at a beach bonfire, the flames reflecting in his eyes. And one at a coffee shop, slightly blurry, but it showed him reading a dog-eared paperback. He wore a thin leather bracelet in every shot. But what caught me most wasn't the photos, it was his bio. Time is the only thing we can't get back. Let's not waste it. Something about it felt different. Less cliché than the usual. Love to travel foodie, looking for a partner in crime. Crap. I hesitated. Part of me was tired of this cycle. Matches that fizzled, guys who wanted hookups, or worse, men who couldn't string together a sentence. But I swiped right, and instantly a notification popped up. It's a match! My heart skipped. I bit my lip. Before I could decide whether to message, a bubble appeared. Evan, so what does a girl like you do on a Friday night in Philly besides swiping on Tinder? I actually laughed. The timing was uncanny. Me. Mostly avoiding bad dates. What about you? Evan. Trying not to be one of those bad dates drinks tomorrow night? I blinked. Straightforward, confident. No dragging things out. Me. You don't waste time, do you? Evan. Why waste it? It's the most precious thing in the world. Except maybe your smile. Corny. But it worked. We talked for another hour. He told me he'd grown up in Australia, had been traveling across the US for the last year, staying in hostels and Airbnbs. He loved surfing, hated small talk, and swore by the philosophy of never putting things off. By midnight, we'd exchanged numbers and agreed to meet the next evening at a bar in Old City. I spent way too long picking an outfit, settled on black, jeans and a forest green blouse. Not flashy, but not careless. As I walked into the bar, my stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. The place buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses. Warm yellow lights bounced off the liquor bottles behind the counter. I found a table and ordered a martini, rehearsing possible greetings in my head. 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 30. I checked my phone. No messages. By 45 minutes, my excitement curdled into embarrassment. 2 different men approached me during that time, both offering drinks. Both brushed off with tight smiles. My martini sat melting untouched. After an hour, I finally texted him. Me. Hey, where are you? I've been waiting for over an hour. No reply. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. Furious, I threw some cash on the table and left. When I got home, pacing my living room in a storm of anger, my phone buzzed. A message from Evan. Evan. I was there. Didn't see you. Here's proof. Attached was a photo of the bar. Same crowd, same lighting. My stomach flipped. Me. Where were you sitting? Evan. Near the jukebox. Where were you? I frowned. I'd scanned the entire bar a dozen times. He hadn't been there, or at least I hadn't seen him. Something didn't add up. He apologized relentlessly over text. Said maybe we'd missed each other in the crowd. He didn't want things to end on a misunderstanding. Against my better judgment, I agreed to one more try. We chose a quiet cafe near Rittenhouse Square. Saturday afternoon. No excuses. I arrived early, ordered a latte, and sat by the window. Rain tapped the glass. I sipped, checked my phone, glanced around, and waited. 30 minutes. 45. No Evan. Heat flushed my face with embarrassment. I texted him furiously. Me. This is ridiculous. You made a fool of me twice. Evan. I swear I was there. Look. Another photo came through. This time of the cafe. Taken from a corner table. My heart stuttered. The timestamp was today. Me. Are you messing with me? Evan. No. Maybe we're cursed to miss each other. Me. I tried calling you, no ring. Evan. My American SIM doesn't work properly. Need Wi-Fi for calls. Something was wrong. My instincts screamed it. That night, I blocked his number, deleted our messages, told myself it was just another catfish, another waste of time. By February, I'd nearly forgotten him. Tinder was long gone from my phone. But one night, out with friends at a club in Fishtown, I saw him. Or at least, I thought I did. The same tousled hair, the same leather bracelet. He stood at the back, half shadowed by strobe lights, eyes locked, on me. My heart jolted. I pushed through the crowd, but by the time I reached the spot, he was gone. That night, curiosity clawed at me. Against all reason, I unblocked his number. I called. No ring. Minutes later, a message buzzed in. A photo of the nightclub. Taken that night. Me. What the hell is going on? Evan. Just wanted to see you again. I owe you answers. Before I could respond, another message arrived. A screenshot of a news article. Australian traveler found dead in Philadelphia hostel. Identified as 28-year-old Evan Walsh. Believed to be the 4th victim in suspected dating app poisonings. The photo in the article was unmistakable. The boyish grin, the leather bracelet, date of death, 3 months before we matched. My hands trembled. Me. This isn't funny. How are you sending these? Reply, instant Evan. Thank you for liberating me. My vision blurred. Then another buzz, another photo. It was me. Sitting on my couch, phone in hand, horror carved into my face. Taken from behind. My blood froze. Slowly, mechanically, I turned. The apartment was empty. Empty, except for something lying on the floor. A leather bracelet, the same one from his photos. I never really thought of myself as the dating app type of guy. Growing up in a quiet suburb outside of Dayton, Ohio, I was always more comfortable in small circles. Friends I'd known since middle school, a few co-workers, and the occasional girl I met through mutual connections. But when I turned 21 in the fall of 2016, things changed. Most of my friends had either gone off to college or moved to bigger cities, and I was stuck working at a local car parts warehouse. My nights after work felt empty. That's when my buddy Chris leaned across the table at a Buffalo Wild Wings one Friday night and said, "Dude, you've got to try Tinder. Everyone's on it. I've hooked up twice this month just swiping." At first, I laughed him off. Man, I'm not about to go chasing random girls online. It feels fake. Chris shook his head, smirking as he dipped a wing into ranch. "You're missing out. Seriously, even if nothing happens, it's fun to talk to people. Just try it." Maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was the loneliness, but when I got home that night, I downloaded Tinder. For the next few months, I didn't take it too seriously. I went on a couple of casual dates. One ended with us both realizing we had nothing in common, another with me sitting alone in a Starbucks after being stood up. Still, I couldn't deny the little thrill that came from matching with someone. It was addictive in its own way. By winter, I was using Tinder whenever I was bored. Swipe left, swipe right, repeat. Most nights ended with nothing, but then one weekend in January of 2017, everything shifted. That Friday, I had plans to drive down to Cincinnati to visit an old high school buddy, Tyler, who was studying at the University of Cincinnati. He promised me a weekend of parties, cheap drinks, and the kind of chaos I hadn't had in months. When I got to Tyler's apartment, he greeted me with a beer and a slap on the back. "About time, man. Tonight's gonna be nuts." And he was right. We bounced between two parties, met up with some of his classmates, and by the time we stumbled back to his place around 2 a.m., I was exhausted but wired at the same time. Laying on the couch with my phone, I opened Tinder. That's when I saw her profile. Her name was Emily. She was 20, a student at UC, and her pictures showed a bright smile framed by dark brown hair with a thin silver necklace visible in almost every shot. She had this approachable girl-next-door vibe that instantly stood out from the dozens of over-filtered selfies I usually scrolled past. I swiped right. "It's a match." I grinned, adrenaline replacing my fatigue. I messaged her right away. Me, "Hey, couldn't sleep either?" She responded almost instantly. Emily, "Haha, nope. Just got back from hanging with some friends. What about you?" Me, "Same. I'm visiting a buddy here for the weekend. First time in Cincinnati in a while." We went back and forth for over an hour. She was funny, quick-witted, and easy to talk to. Around 3:30 a.m., she suggested meeting the next night. Emily, "You should come by tomorrow evening. My roommates are gone for the weekend and I don't feel like going out again. Just hang out, maybe watch a movie." Tyler was passed out in his room, and I stared at the screen for a long minute. Normally, I'd hesitate, but something about her tone, casual, confident, made me say yes. The next evening, after another day of hanging with Tyler, I decided to go. Around 9:30 p.m., I left his apartment and drove 10 minutes across town to the address Emily texted me. The area wasn't great. The streetlights buzzed dimly and a few houses had boarded-up windows. Still, I figured college towns always had sketchy pockets. I pulled up to the complex she'd described, a row of aging brick buildings with narrow stairwells leading to the units. I texted her, me, "Here, which door is yours?" I waited in, my car engine idling, glancing at the building. For a few minutes, no response. Then my phone buzzed. "Emily, the front door should be open. Just come in and head down the hall. I'll meet you." Something about that felt off. Most people would just say, "Second floor, door on the left," or something. Leaving a front door unlocked at night in this neighborhood? I hesitated, staring at the building. Then I reminded myself not to overthink it. She probably just didn't want to give out her exact apartment number until she knew I was real. I parked, shut off the car, and walked toward the entrance. The metal door creaked as I pushed it open. She was right. It wasn't locked. Inside, the hallway was dimly lit by a single bulb. The air smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic. I ran my hand along the wall, looking for a light switch. When I heard it whispering, at first I thought it was coming from upstairs, but then it became clear. Just ahead, maybe 2 doors down, someone hissed softly, "Shh, he's right outside." I froze, my chest tightened, my ears straining. For a second, I thought maybe Emily had roommates after all. Maybe they were messing with her, teasing about her Tinder date. But the tone of that whisper wasn't playful. It was sharp, urgent. I took a step back, my sneakers squeaking faintly on the linoleum. That's when I noticed movement, a flicker of shadows through the blinds of a ground floor window. Shapes, multiple shapes, watching me. My stomach dropped. I didn't wait to find out more. Spinning on my heel, I bolted back through the entrance, heart hammering in my throat. My breath puffed out in the cold night air as I sprinted for my car, fumbling my keys with shaking hands before diving inside and locking the doors. For a moment, I just sat there, gasping, staring at the dark windows of the building. Nothing moved. Nobody came out. My phone buzzed. Emily. "Where'd you go? I've been waiting all night." My fingers trembled as I blocked the number without replying. The drive back to Tyler's was a blur. My thoughts spiraled. There was no Emily. There never had been. Someone, or maybe several people, had lured me there. If I'd walked even a few steps further, opened that door, what would have happened? Back at Tyler's, I tried to explain, but he laughed it off. "Man, you're being paranoid. Probably just her friends messing with you." But deep down, I knew better. The voice, the figures in the window, that unlocked front door. It wasn't a prank. I never heard from Emily again. Weeks later, curiosity got the better of me, and I searched her photos using reverse image tools. They belonged to some random girl's Instagram account in another state. Her identity had been stolen. Someone in Cincinnati had been using her, pictures baiting guys like me. And I still wonder, late at night when I can't sleep, what was waiting for me in that apartment if I hadn't trusted my gut and run. All I know is it wasn't a girl named Emily. I never imagined that a simple dating app would lead me into one of the most terrifying nights of my life. Back in the fall of 2019, I was 22, freshly out of a 2-year relationship that had ended in a slow, bitter collapse. My ex, Haley, and I had known each other since high school, and by the time she left me, I felt like someone had ripped out a part of my routine more than my heart. We weren't screaming, cheating, or throwing things at each other. It was more of that slow fade, the kind where every conversation feels like checking the time on a broken clock. When she finally said, "I don't love you the way I used to," I pretended to be strong, but truthfully it crushed me. The weeks afterward were foggy. I was living alone in a small 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of Dayton, Ohio, working odd shifts as a security officer for a shipping warehouse. It wasn't exactly glamorous, but it paid enough to keep me fed and the lights on. Still, nights got lonely. I'd catch myself scrolling on my phone way past midnight, not because I wanted to, but because silence pressed against the walls like it was waiting for me to admit defeat. That's when I downloaded Tinder. I didn't have high expectations. I wasn't terrible looking, but I wasn't one of those guys with 6-pack abs holding a surfboard in my profile either. My pictures were just me in work polos, me at a friend's wedding, and one awkward selfie I debated deleting about 50 times. Still, matches trickled in. Most fizzled out after a day or two of casual texting, and then I matched with her. Her name was Selena, 23. Dark brown hair, hazel eyes, and one of those half smiles that made you think she was holding back an inside joke. Her bio was short but oddly personal. "I like people who don't rush conversations, stargazing bars. Ask me something real." It hooked me right away. I asked her what she meant by something real. She responded, "Not what your favorite color is. Ask me about the time I broke my arm at a county fair." The way she phrased things, it felt like she was trying to pull me into her orbit. Our conversations lasted hours, bouncing from childhood embarrassments to the dumbest arguments we'd had with siblings. I'd laugh at my phone, forgetting about the hollow silence around me. After about a week, she suggested meeting. Instead of a coffee shop or restaurant, she offered something different. "There's this open field near my place. No lights, no traffic. You can see the stars like nowhere else. Bring a hoodie, it gets chilly." At first I hesitated. Meeting someone from an app in the middle of nowhere sounded off. But she added quickly, "It's my favorite spot when I need to clear my head, promise it's safe. My family's owned the land for decades." I wanted to believe her. More than that, I wanted the distraction. So I agreed. The night of the date, I cleaned up my truck like I was prepping for a job interview. Vacuumed the floors, tossed the empty Red Bull cans, even sprayed some cheap cologne I hadn't touched in months. My nerves hummed with that restless, invincible energy you only have in your early 20s. I told myself I was tough. Nothing bad ever really happened to me. Why would tonight be any different? I picked her up around 9 p.m. Selena was even prettier in person. She wore a faded jean jacket over a black hoodie. And when she slid into my passenger seat, she smiled like we'd known each other longer than a week. "You actually showed up," she teased. "You thought I wouldn't?" I asked. "You'd be surprised how many guys chicken out." Her laugh was soft but carried a little weight, like she'd said that line before. She guided me through a series of winding back roads outside Dayton, the kind where streetlights disappeared and the darkness swallowed everything except my headlights. Finally, we pulled into a dirt path that opened into a wide field, and she was right. The stars were incredible. The air was crisp, carrying that smell of dry leaves and faint wood smoke from some far-off farm. Deer flickered like shadows at the edge of the tree line. For a moment, it felt perfect. We talked, shared dumb stories, leaned against my truck bed, and laughed. I could almost feel the weight of my breakup peeling off layer by layer, but then I noticed them. Headlights, dim, in the distance, slowly approaching. "Are we expecting anyone?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Selena squinted. "Not that I know of." The vehicle rolled closer until I could make out its boxy shape. A van. White, with one headlight brighter than the other. My gut twisted. It didn't look like it planned to stop. I tensed. "Stay in the truck," I muttered, already stepping forward, flashlight in hand. The van stopped just a few feet from mine, blocking me from pulling forward. Its engine idled. My pulse thudded in my ears. The driver's door creaked open and a tall man stepped out. Broad shoulders, scruffy beard, maybe mid-40s. He stood in the wash of headlights, calm but firm. "You folks know this is private property?" he asked. His voice was low, almost polite, but something in it made my skin prickle. I forced a smile. "We're just stargazing. Didn't mean to trespass." His expression softened a little. "Fair enough. Had some trouble with poachers out here. Don't want anyone shooting deer, you understand?" I nodded quickly. "Of course. We're not hunting, I swear." He studied me for a beat too long, then gave a small nod. "All right then, y'all have a good night." He slipped back into the van and drove off down the dirt path. Relief washed over me. I walked back to the truck, heart still hammering. "Guess that was the owner," I told Selena, trying to lighten the mood. But something in her had shifted. She was glued to her phone, thumbs flying across the screen. "Everything okay?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Yeah, just texting a friend." "Who? Does it matter?" The sharpness in her tone stung. I forced a chuckle. "All right, just asking." The rest of the night felt off. I tried to talk, tried to joke, but her focus was buried in her phone. My stomach buzzed with unease, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe she was testing me. An hour later, those same headlights appeared again. This time, the van barreled toward us. Faster. "Shit," I muttered, jumping into the driver's seat. I threw the truck into reverse, positioning it so I had some space if things went bad. The van screeched to a stop inches from my bumper. Before I could react, Selena flung open her door and sprinted toward the van. "What the hell, Selena?" I shouted, but my voice cracked with disbelief. The man from before, same beard, same calm expression, now twisted with something sharper, stepped out. Selena ran straight to him. That's when it clicked. I had been set up. Selena sprinted to the high, fan like a child running to a parent, her figure illuminated in those sickly yellow headlights. My throat went dry as the man stepped out again, this time no smile, no pretense. He looked bigger than before. towering, shoulders squared, hands clenched. "Selena," I barked. My voice cracked between rage and disbelief. She didn't turn. Instead, she shouted to him, "He's got money, trucks full of stuff too. I told you he'd be easy." It felt like the ground had been yanked out from under me. My chest burned, heat and betrayal twisting together. The man, Bob, as I later learned his name, started toward me. Each step deliberate. "Hold up," I stammered, gripping the door handle. "You don't want to do this. But before I could finish, he lunged. I scrambled out, flashlight in one hand, my other hand hovering near the concealed pistol I carried off duty. My training screamed at me not to draw too soon. Show a weapon too early, escalate the fight too fast, but Bob wasn't hesitating. He slammed me backward, knocking the wind out of me. My flashlight clattered across the dirt. I tasted blood. "Stay down," he growled. Selena, meanwhile, had pulled something from the van, a metal pipe. Her voice cracked as she yelled, "Don't make it harder than it has to be, Evan. Just give us your wallet and the keys." Her face twisted between anger and panic, tears streaking down her cheeks. She looked like she didn't want to be here, but also like she'd already dug too deep to crawl back out. I spat dirt from my mouth, shaking my head. "You set me up? Just do it," she screamed. "Please." Bob reached for me again, but instinct took over. I rolled out of reach, scrambled to my feet, and finally drew my gun. "Police!" I barked, weapon trained on him. On the ground. "Now!" Everything froze. Bob's eyes widened. Selena froze mid-step, the pipe shaking in her hands. For a second, I thought maybe they'd comply. But then Bob bolted. "Stop!" I shouted, but he was already sprinting back toward the van. Selena hesitated, then dropped the pipe and chased after him. My adrenaline spiked. Against every piece of training drilled into me, I gave chase. We disappeared into the dark woods. Branches clawed at my arms. My boots pounded the dirt. Their shapes flickered just ahead, two shadows moving too fast, too chaotic. Then, 3 deafening pops cracked through the night. Muzzle flashes lit up between the trees. I dropped to the ground, heart slamming. My ears rang. They had a gun. Scrambling backward, I sprinted in the opposite direction, back toward the only safety I knew, my truck. By the time I reached it, my lungs burned. I floored it, gravel spitting out from the tires, not stopping until I saw the faint glow of neighborhood streetlights. Only then did I call dispatch, voice shaking as I told them I had 2 suspects on the run and needed backup. Minutes crawled, like hours, until my sergeant and field training officer pulled up where I'd parked. They smirked at first, teasing me for calling the cops when you are the cops. But that humor evaporated when we went back to the field. The van was still there. Inside, they found duct tape, knives, lighter fluid, a stash of pills, and handcuffs. There was dried blood on the passenger seat, dark and crusted like it had been there for weeks. An AR-15 leaned against the rear bench. The license plate came, back stolen. The van had been reported missing 3 weeks earlier. My sergeant's face turned pale. He told me to stay in the car, to keep my mouth shut unless bullets started flying. For once, I didn't argue. Detectives took over within the hour. They scoured the woods, combed through every inch of that van, but Bob and Selena had vanished, like smoke. Days turned into weeks. No arrests, no leads. Their names, if those were even real, never came up again. It's been years now. I still carry my badge, still pull long shifts. My co-workers love to tease me, call me Tinder boy, remind me I'm the guy who got set up on his first big date after heartbreak. I laugh along most of the time, but sometimes when I'm driving late at night, I catch the flash of headlights in my rearview mirror and feel my chest tighten, because I can still see the look on Selena's face. Tears and guilt mixed with something far darker as she raised that pipe, and I can still hear the echo of those gunshots ricocheting through the trees. I don't use dating apps anymore, and I never will. I never really thought of myself as the kind of person who would meet someone serious on a dating app. To be honest, I'd always been skeptical. My friends swiped around like it was a game. You match, you chat, maybe you meet for a drink if the vibes are good. But me? I always thought it was risky. Too many strangers, too many unknowns. But in 2019, I was living in Columbus, Ohio, and life had gotten quiet. Too quiet. I was 27, working as a dental assistant at a clinic downtown, and my days felt like they were on repeat. Wake up, fight through traffic, deal with cranky patients, head home, microwave something half-decent for dinner, and fall asleep, scrolling through my phone. My long-term relationship had ended a year earlier. 4 years together, and suddenly I was alone again. At first, I told myself I liked the solitude, that it gave me space to breathe, but over time that solitude turned into something heavier. Loneliness. Nights where the silence in my apartment felt suffocating. It was my coworker Maya who pushed me into the online dating world. "Come on, Sabrina," she said one evening, while we were closing up. "You're smart, you're gorgeous, you're funny. You shouldn't be going home every night just to talk to your cat." I laughed. "It's safer. Besides, dating apps are just weird." "Safe?" she smirked. "You realize the last guy you dated, Mr. 4 years, cheated on you with your neighbor, right? How's that safe?" I hated that she had a point. That night, with a glass of wine in hand and my cat purring on the couch beside me, I gave in. I downloaded Tinder. The first 20 minutes were brutal. A blur of bathroom selfies, truck photos, awkward grins, and guys holding dead fish. I nearly deleted the app. Then his profile popped up. Nick. He had dark brown hair, the kind that always looked a little tousled, like he'd just rolled out of bed in a perfect way. His green eyes caught me immediately. Sharp, confident, but not intimidating. His smile seemed effortless. His bio said he was 29, worked in IT, and liked hiking. One photo showed him with a golden retriever, another on a hiking trail with a sunset in the background. For the first time that night, I felt a pull. I swiped right. "It's a match." My stomach fluttered. Before I could even type a word, a message came through. "Nick. Well, looks like I got lucky today." I chuckled. Me. Or maybe I did. Guess we'll find out. And just like that, it started. Over the next week, we talked constantly. His texts were light, funny, never pushy. He asked about my job, my hobbies, what kind of music I liked. We joked about Ohio winters and bonded over our mutual hatred of grocery shopping. He seemed normal, refreshingly normal. By the weekend, he suggested we meet. "How about coffee?" he asked. "There's this little place on High Street, quiet but great lattes." Normally I would have hesitated, but I figured, public place, middle of the day. Safe. I got there early, nerves buzzing, in my stomach. When Nick walked in, he looked even better than his pictures. Taller, broader shoulders, that same easy smile. "Sabrina?" he asked, walking over. "That's me," I said, standing to shake his hand. No handshake. He grinned. "Come on, I'm a hugger." I laughed awkwardly but let him hug me. It wasn't creepy, just warm. The conversation flowed so easily it almost scared me. We talked for nearly 2 hours, sipping coffee until the cafe started to fill. He was funny, attentive, and asked questions without making it feel like an interrogation. When we left, he walked me to my car. "This was fun," he said. "We should do it again." And we did. A few nights later, we met at a park for a walk. It was chilly, and I remembered how he casually draped his jacket over my shoulders without asking. I teased him for being cliché, but secretly, I liked it. By the end of that night, I was convinced Nick was different. So when he suggested a third date at his place, we'll open a bottle of wine, order takeout, keep it low-key, I didn't think twice. 2 dates in, he felt trustworthy. Safe. God, how wrong I was. It was a Friday evening. I dressed casually. Jeans, a sweater, nothing too fancy. When I pulled up to his house, I was relieved it didn't look sketchy. A modest 2-story in a quiet neighborhood, the kind with trimmed lawns and porch lights glowing. He greeted me at the door with that smile. "Come on in," he said warmly. "You like red wine, right?" "Perfect," I nodded. We sat in his living room laughing, talking, sipping wine. He was charming as always, telling me stories about his college days, asking about mine. But about an hour in, something shifted. Started to feel off. At first it was subtle. My head felt heavy, my words sluggish. My vision blurred slightly like I was underwater. And then it hit me. My chest tightened, my limbs grew weak. The room tilted. I'd felt this before. Years ago at a college party when someone slipped something into my drink. I knew instantly. Panic surged, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I let him know I realized what he'd done, he'd know I was still aware, still capable. "Excuse me," I said quickly, standing with fake energy. "Bathroom?" "Of course," he smiled, pointing down the hall. I walked as steadily as I could, every step feeling heavier, every second louder in my ears. Once inside, I locked the door and collapsed against it, fumbling for my phone. My hands shook violently as I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "My name is Sabrina," I whispered, slurring. I've been drugged. I'm at 4319 Birchwood Drive. Please hurry, please." Darkness swallowed me. I don't remember much after that. Just fragments. A crash. Heavy footsteps. Voices shouting. Strong arms lifting me. And one strange, vivid detail. Something being pulled over my head. A bag. Then nothing. I woke, up in a hospital bed, bright light stabbing my eyes. My throat was dry, my head pounding. A nurse was at my side. "You're safe now," she said gently. Over the next few hours, details trickled in. The police had stormed Nick's house minutes. After my call, he was arrested. I'd been found in the bathroom, barely conscious. Days later, once I'd regained enough strength, the police asked me to come in and give a full statement. I told them everything. The wine, the sudden dizziness, locking myself in the bathroom. And then I mentioned the strangest detail. "The only thing I remember clearly," I said, "was that you put a bag over my head. At least I think you did. Maybe I imagined it." The two detectives exchanged a look. Finally, one of them cleared, his throat. "No, you didn't imagine it." I froze. "What?" "When we entered the house, we saw something in the living room. Something Nick had set up for you. We didn't want you to see it. It would have been too much." "What was it?" I whispered. They didn't answer right away. Their silence was worse than any explanation. Finally, one of them said softly, "You don't need to know. Trust us. It's better this way." A shiver tore through me. My stomach churned. Nick was denied bail. He was charged with possession of illegal substances, intent to assault, and several other charges I couldn't even process. I never found out what exactly. He had planned for me in that living room, and honestly, I don't think I want to. That night, when I got home, I deleted Tinder from my phone and promised myself I'd never go back to online dating again. Because I realized something terrifying. Monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like the guy with the nice smile. The one who opens doors, who makes you laugh, who seems safe. And you don't know until it's almost too late. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to download Tinder. For most of my 20s, I was in a serious relationship. 6 years of my life wrapped up with one girl who I thought was it for me. We lived together, planned trips together, even talked about marriage when the timing felt right. But in late 2020, during the mess of the pandemic, she told me she wasn't happy anymore. No dramatic betrayal, no screaming match, just a quiet evening where she looked me in the eyes and said she couldn't see a future with me. I won't lie, it broke me. I moved out of our apartment in Indianapolis, boxed up 6 years of memories, and rented a small place on the edge of town. For months, I didn't want to see anyone. My friends tried pulling me out of it, inviting me to bars, texting me about road trips, insisting I'd bounce back. But I wasn't the type to just meet a stranger at a bar, and the idea of starting all over felt exhausting. By spring of 2021, though, I started to feel restless. My evenings felt hollow. I'd sit at my kitchen table scrolling mindlessly through YouTube or binging shows I didn't care about. I missed connection. I missed even the small things, like someone asking me how my day was or sharing stupid inside jokes. That's when my buddy Caleb said, "Dude, just download Tinder. Everyone's on it now. You'll at least get out of your rut." I laughed him off at first. Dating apps had never appealed to me. They always seemed artificial. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me. One night, with a couple beers in me, I downloaded Tinder and set up a profile. It was awkward as hell. I hadn't written a bio about myself since college applications, and my photos were a mix of old Facebook shots and blurry vacation selfies. Still, I figured I'd give it a try. The first few weeks were rough. Most of my matches ghosted me after a few messages. Some were clearly bots. I went on one actual date, with a girl named Megan at a public park. And after 20 minutes of stiff small talk, she pulled the classic fake phone call, excused herself, and left. I never heard from her again. I was ready to delete the app when I matched with someone who seemed different. Her name was Clara. She had brown hair, shoulder length with this faint reddish tint that caught my eye in every photo. Her smile wasn't forced like most of the posed selfies I'd scrolled past. It was wide, unguarded, genuine. She wore a simple flannel shirt in one picture, no makeup in another. Something about that felt refreshing. I swiped right more out of hope than expectation. When we matched instantly, I actually muttered out loud, "No way." Her first message came quickly. "Clara, hey, you actually live in Greenwood? I used to work over there." That kicked things off. We talked about coffee shops, local parks, dumb high school jobs. She worked in healthcare admin, which made sense, given her practical, no-nonsense vibe. After a few days of messaging, she suggested we meet. "Would you be down for a walk? There's a park in Franklin with a lake and trails. It's really pretty this time of year." My gut reaction was caution. A stranger, in a park, at dusk? Everything about online dating horror stories flashed in my head. But she seemed real. Her social media checked out. Her conversation style wasn't robotic, and she even teased me about being too careful. I agreed. We settled on a Thursday evening around 5, both of us heading there after work. That night, I pulled into the park's gravel lot a few minutes early. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than they should have. I was nervous, more nervous than I'd been in years. I checked my phone. A new text from Clara. "Clara, just walking up by the pavilion. I'll wave." I looked up, and there she was, the same girl from the pictures. Same hair, same smile, wearing a faded denim jacket, jeans, and sneakers. She waved, and my stomach did this stupid flip. "Okay," I muttered to myself. "She's real. She's actually real." I stepped out, trying not to look like a total wreck. "Clara," I called. "Hi, Abe," she said warmly. We shook hands awkwardly at first, then both laughed at how stiff it felt. That broke the ice. We spent the next couple hours at a picnic table talking. Conversation was easy. We compared embarrassing family stories, bad first jobs, even dumb things like our go-to gas station snacks. For the first time in a long time, I felt myself relax around someone new. As the sun dipped lower, she glanced at the lake and said, "Want to walk a trail before it gets too dark?" Normally, I'd say no. Walking through wooded trails at dusk with someone I'd just met? Not smart. But the way she said it, so casual, so trusting, made me nod. Sure, let's do it. The trail was quiet, winding along the lake. The water reflected faint streaks of orange and purple from the sunset. Fireflies blinked near the brush. We even held hands at one point, and I was shocked by how natural it felt. By the time it got fully dark, we turned back toward the lot. That's when things changed. I noticed a figure up ahead. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks in the dark, but the faint moonlight through the trees outlined a man standing in the middle of the path. Just standing. Clara stopped in her tracks. "Do you see him?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. She called out, "Hey, do you need something?" The man didn't move. He just stared. The air felt different, heavy. I wanted to back away quietly, pretend we hadn't seen him. But Clara, braver than me, raised her voice again. "Hello?" Still nothing. As we got closer, my stomach dropped. The man shifted slightly and I saw his arms, pulled from behind his back, revealing a hunting knife. "Hands up, turn around," he barked, his voice low, rough, my legs locked. I'd never been in anything like this. Every nerve screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't budge. I glanced at Clara. For a split second, suspicion crept in. Was this a setup? But the sheer terror on her face answered that. Before I could process it, she lunged. She charged at the guy, slamming into him with her whole body. He staggered, fell backward onto the dirt. "Run!" she screamed. I froze like an idiot for another heartbeat, then bolted. Clara scrambled up beside me, and together we sprinted toward the lot. Behind us, heavy footsteps pounded the trail. He was chasing us. "Faster!" Clara yelled, her breath ragged. We cut through a side path, branches whipping against our arms, until the lot came into view. We sprinted to her car, dove inside, and she slammed the locks. Her hands shook as she fumbled the keys, finally starting the engine. Gravel sprayed as we tore out of the lot. I risked a glance in the mirror. The man stood at the edge of the lot, knife still in his hand, motionless as he watched us leave. What chilled me most wasn't that he didn't follow. It was that there were other cars in the lot, 3 of them, parked, empty. Were they his? Were others waiting? We called the cops once we were a few miles away. They took our statements, but when they arrived, the man was gone. The lot was nearly empty, except for my car. The officer tried reassuring us, saying maybe it was just some disturbed individual, maybe even a prank. But Clara and I both knew it wasn't. That knife wasn't a prop. That night, still buzzing from adrenaline, we ended up at a late-night diner. Over greasy pancakes and bottomless coffee, we replayed everything. Talking about it felt surreal, like it hadn't really happened. But the bruises on Clara's arm where she'd slammed into the man said otherwise. And strangely, it brought us closer. That shared terror, the way she'd thrown herself into danger without a thought. It created a bond I hadn't expected. We kept seeing each other after that. Dinners, movies, quiet evenings at my place. Slowly, the shadow of that night faded into the background, though it never disappeared completely. 2 years later, Clara and I were engaged. Sometimes people ask how we met. We usually laugh before telling them Tinder, and almost getting murdered on our first date. The looks on their faces never get old, but late at night when I close my eyes, I still sometimes see him. That figure standing in the moonlight, knife in hand, watching us. I'll never forget the feeling that we weren't supposed to make it out of those woods, that maybe, just maybe, someone else didn't.